Thought I'd do a video today of comparing wood stoves with pellet stoves because there's a lot of stuff out on YouTube that I don't think is particularly fair, and it's pretty biased. Now, I have two wood stoves. One's a freestanding and one is this insert. They're both Hearthstone. Now Hearthstone is like top of the line wood stoves. They are very expensive, like $5,000 expensive. But you can also, I could have bought a wood stove for $1,000. Like US Stove makes some really affordable, both pellet and wood stoves. And the price, you can spend $5,000 on a pellet stove if it's the look that you're wanting. So, price-wise, there's really not much difference between a wood stove and a pellet stove. Previously, the power requirement was a big deal between the pellet and the wood stove because you always had to have power to run a pellet stove, and you had to clean a lot of. There's a lot more stuff that can go wrong with the pellet stove that's got a powered unit, meaning that it has a drive system that feeds the burn pot out of the hopper. But now they've come out with some US Stove, I think it's a Wiseway, has a gravity fed, and there's another manufacturer that's got a gravity fed pellet stove that is great if you don't have power. That's a really nice feature. They're pretty weird looking stoves, but for a utilitarian point of view, they're great. One of the things that I saw in searching YouTube was, and of course this was a salesman trying to sell pellet stoves. He claimed that he had stoves that were 90% efficient. That's just a down and out lie. There is not a pellet stove in America that has 90% efficient, and you don't want a 90% efficient. 90%, you're going to have trouble with creosote built up in your chimney stack because you're not going to have enough heat to really get rid of the smoke in the way that you need. Currently, EPA certifies wood stove and pellet stoves. They're between 70 and 83% efficient. This current stove behind me is 79% efficient. Most of the pellet stoves I looked at were in the same range. I found one pellet stove that was 2% more efficient, 81. So they're really not, pellet stoves are not any more efficient than, it varies from model to model, but basically everybody's on the same even keel. Compared to, they love to compare the stoves to wood stoves from the 80s, which were like 50% efficient. But now wood stoves have come a long way with secondary burner technology and catalytic converters and all kinds of stuff that lower the emissions and increase the efficiency, which you should if you're in the market for a wood stove. Unless it's a shop or a cabin where you're barely ever going to use any wood, you should get an EPA certified wood stove. Not only for the environment, but also for your back, because the more efficient the stove is, the less you have to feed it wood. So, speaking of feeding wood, now, this is where the pellet stove really has a drawback in my opinion. You've got to lift 40 pounds. Pellet stoves come in 40-pound bags. So, and they typically have to be fed once a day, so every day you're going to be picking up a 40-pound bag. Now, my firewood, which I'll get over here and show you in my cart, is I do not pick up any firewood that weighs 40 pounds. This piece of wood right here maybe weighs about 4, this piece of oak. Weighs about 4, maybe 5 pounds. And this is the way I do firewood. It's actually, I bring it in a cart, and that way I only have to touch the wood as minimal as possible. So we load up the cart, we wheel it into the house and park it, and that's our firewood storage. So luckily I designed the house, my new deck, with ramps so I could have that convenience. But anyway, back to the wood stoves. So the pellets, that's one drawback. The other really big drawback is storage of the pellets. You can't keep them in a woodshed. You have to store them in some type of climate controlled space because they're real sensitive to humidity. So most people store them in their garage, and most, if they can. And you think about, well, 40 pounds a day, that's a lot of bags. If you're going to, most people that do wood stoves, pellets, a lot of them buy and get a whole, a truck full. So that's eating up a lot of your usable house space. Whereas I am using roughly 4 or 5 square feet of my interior house space with those my card and firewood. So I think that's a really large drawback for pellet stoves, is the storage of the pellets, plus the fact that you have to be able to move 40-pound bags. Now, on the opposite end, or plus end for the pellet stoves, they are cleaner as far as trash goes. So you're not bringing in firewood and the occasional bug, although this winter I've not had a single bug piggyback on my firewood. That's something that happens maybe every now and then. But the trash, the bark, it creates a lot more dirt. And your wood stoves also produce more ash than your pellet stoves. But for me, the ash is a good thing because that's fertilizer that I'm not having to buy, because being a farmer, I need fertilizer for a lot of things. So that takes care of my potassium fertilizer for everything, is just the amount of ash that I produce. So they're pretty much on an even keel. As I was watching this video, they covered everything, but they didn't cover the biggest thing, which is the cost. The cost of pellets and versus firewood. So currently in my area, which is East Tennessee, I can get, I calculated that it would cost me $3 a day to burn. We're going to assume that we both have, I've got both a pellet stove and a wood stove with the same efficiency rating. It would cost me over $6 for pellets and $3 for wood. If I bought the wood, it was seasoned and brought in and stacked for me. So I think that's a big deal, because most people who are burning wood aren't necessarily just doing it for the ambiance. They're doing it to save money. So the other factor that's kind of worse, and the world's largest manufacturer of pellets just declared bankruptcy in March of 2024. So you're kind of at the bay and wheel of pellet salesmen. So, right now it costs twice as much to run a pellet stove for me, but it may cost more for other viewers in different parts of the country. But speaking of different parts of the country, this is where a pellet stove may be the right pick. If you're in the Great Plains or somewhere where there is just no firewood, then a pellet stove, if it's got to be shipped in, then a pellet stove might be the best way to go. You're still at the will of retail salesmen, and of course I don't pay anything for my firewood. I harvest it myself. It's something I do as long as I can. So I've got plenty of woods, and but I know not every viewer is going to have a stand of woods that they can get their own firewood from, but it is something to consider if especially if you want to live more off the land. Well, you know, you can grow your own heat basically. So you can't do that with a pellet stove. You can't make your own pellets, and it's just something I don't particularly care for as far as independence goes. So anyway, I just wanted you viewers to have that information out there, that basically, quick, you know, the stoves, they're pretty much equal in efficiency. They're equal in cost. Just one is dirtier to use and one's more expensive to use, in a nutshell. So anyway, I'm going to have a video coming up soon of wood versus outdoor burners. So watch for that. Hopefully I'll get that this next month. Anyway, I hope you guys have a happy new year, and please like and subscribe.